Hello, I'm Max Yates. I'm an academic rheumatologist in Norwich, and I'm joined by...
I'm Rosemary Hollick. I'm also an academic rheumatologist based up at the University of Aberdeen, and I'm Deputy Chair of the Heberden Committee.
So Rosemary and I are going to talk to you about what makes a good session submission. And really, we want you to put in things that you find of interest, because the BSR is really has its strength through its membership and through your own individual pursuits and interests that you have. And so really, we are reliant on you submitting things for the conference in order for us to have what is a really exciting programme. So the first thing is to note that the session submission is quite soon. In fact, it opens immediately after the conference finishes and then closes again a month later. So you've really got to have your eye on the ball. Rosemary, why is it that we have that relatively short window?
Well, yeah, absolutely, Max. And that's because the conference takes pretty much a whole year to plan, and that planning for next year's conference really starts immediately after this current year's conference. And the assessment of the proposals is quite a rigorous process. So people have an opportunity to submit a proposal for sessions. These are reviewed by three members of the Heberden Committee independently. They are scored. We have a scoring system. And then that's reviewed at the committee meeting in June, where we begin to start putting together a programme, looking at the highest scoring proposals. Most of the time, proposals that are taken forward, usually we usually go back to the people who've proposed them and asked for more work, more development, working with a member of the Heberden Committee, and that revised submission is then reviewed in the autumn. And we don't actually make a final decision on the sessions until our November meeting, and then speakers are invited, and so it is quite important in terms of timing that we get the session submissions so soon after the last conference.
That's right. So it's that whole month of May really to think about your session submission. And there are various different formats that you can submit into. So the one that people are probably most familiar with would be the parallel session. That lasts 90 minutes, comprises of a chair and then 3 individual speakers. Each speaker will have 30 minutes in total, but that also includes their questions. So the usual format would be a 20-minute talk and 10 minutes of questions, but you might want to do, say, 25 minutes of talk and 5 minutes of questions. The other formats are the roundtable discussion. Again, that lasts in 90 minutes. And then there are the workshops. So the ones that are in person, they last 45 minutes. And the ones online, the so-called lunch and learn sessions, last 30 minutes. And really, Rosemary, what are you kind of looking for in terms of, say, we look at a parallel session? What are the kind of key important things that people think about?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things we look at is, has this topic been covered in a recent conference? So we always have to hand, the programmes over the past few years, because it's very unlikely if something has been covered in the past 1 or 2 years that we would have another session on it so soon. So that's something that's really worthwhile bearing in mind when you're putting together a proposal, is to actually have a look at past programmes and think, has this come up recently? We're really interested in hearing from and having a diverse range of speakers from all members of the multidisciplinary team, including our nursing colleagues and pharmacy and our occupational therapists and physiotherapists, etc. So really, in terms of diversity, in terms of speakers, we're also looking for, we tend to like to have speakers from different institutions. So not having all speakers and chair from the same institution, and ideally where possible including a Four Nations approach, just to make sure that we're speaking and relevant to all the membership. I think another thing that we've chatted about, Max, quite a lot is putting as much detail into it as you can. We do get quite a few submissions where it's to be decided, and that makes it quite difficult when you're trying to score abstracts.
That's right, because if the information's not there, then really we as a committee and those people who are reviewing it are unable to assign a score to it, because they're having to make far too many assumptions as to what the actual session content will be. That's right.
Yeah. And as you know, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle in terms of putting together a balanced programme that's got new material that hasn't recently been covered, that speaks to all the different professional groups within BSR, and so if we have as much information as possible, that's really helpful.
And the other thing is, because some people might be thinking, oh goodness, I've got to get a Four Nation approach, I've got to have a nurse, a pharmacist and a doctor all speak in one session. I would say you wouldn't have to have all of those things, and of course it depends on the session that you're submitting. It may be wholly inappropriate to have it being all doctors or all nurses, or it might be the right thing for you to do. So it really depends on your topic. So we do encourage you really to think about what it is that you're actually trying to get across. Yeah, what sort of things would we be looking for in a session? What sort of things could people submit?
Yeah, well, we have a range of different sessions at the BSR conference, going from our laboratory-based bench science, our scientific sessions, through to clinical and health services research, and how you the science behind delivering services, if you like. We've also got paediatric sessions aimed at our paediatric rheumatology colleagues, and also we do have some sessions where we're keen to have sessions that are particularly aimed at other members of the multidisciplinary team. So it's really a broad range of sessions that we're interested in.
That's right. So we are the BSR, aren't we? The British Society for Rheumatology. So anything pertaining to care of rheumatic diseases, which might be first principle science-based studies, right up to drugs that are used in particular scenarios or populations, and then the impact of rheumatic diseases and what they have on the community, and perhaps the best way that we can deliver care services for the future.
Yes,
that's right. It's that kind of scientific arc, really.
So we're trying to create a program that's got something for everybody.
Yes, and sometimes that's quite difficult to do, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you know, sometimes we do get really great submissions, but it's perhaps that it's just been covered quite recently, or there are a few similar sessions that come in. So I guess one thing I would say, if you have submitted a session and it hasn't been successful, please do not let that put you off applying again. And the other thing is, if you put in a session and you're asked, almost always we ask people to make some changes to it based on the feedback of the committee. And if you're asked to do that, you will be allocated a member of the Hebridean Committee and I would absolutely recommend you taking advantage of that in order to clarify any questions you may have and exactly what the ask is, because that will increase the chances of success.
Indeed, because nothing's final until November, when we've kind of seen the whole programme and all the abstracts and everything that's come in. And you know, sometimes that the input might be quite a light touch. Other times we might be making recommendations for you to think about alternative speakers or chairs based on a Four Nation approach, or perhaps you've got too many people from the same institution. occasionally we'll come across sessions where two of them look very similar, but they look very good, and then we ask you to kind of join forces to deliver that session. So that's happens. So as Rosemary says, really do take up the opportunity to work with your Heberden committee liaison to kind of make those changes, because that is your best possible chance to having your session submitted and accepted in November.
Yeah, and I guess it's just worthwhile as a final point that the Heberden committee is made up of a broad range of rheumatology multidisciplinary professionals. So and that's aimed to try and ensure that we have a programme that reflects that balance.
That's right, and as I said, we need to be reflective of our membership. We are utterly reliant on our membership for coming up with the latest cutting developments and practice and policy implementations. So without the BSR members, rheumatology does not move forward. So it's really vital that everyone is engaged and continues to engage in the BSR. And as Rosemary says, please don't be disheartened if you had a session declined. Please do think about submitting in future, whether that's a different session or your other session tweaked based on the committee feedback that you received.
Yeah. And you can also think about joining the committee in the future to help shape future conferences. We
are always looking for people to want to join the BSR committees, and it's much better to have that kind of broad church of membership.
Thank you.